Hello, everyone. It's Wilka here. Welcome to the Leadership Talks podcast. And today I have a very awesome guest, Christopher Ellison. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I'm super excited because you have one of the top destinations in the United States for beach visitors. And but we before we get into that, Chris, I'm like so excited because I love it and I have a friend that lives there and so forth. But introduce yourself to the audience and let us know, how did you start in the hospitality industry?
Sure. My name is Chris Ellison. I'm the Vice President of Revenue for Brittain Resorts and Hotels. I've been in my current role starting in 2019. So I think we're, 6 years in now. But I actually started my career with the Brittain Resort Group back in 2002 as a bellman. It was right out of high school. I was working at a grocery store with a bunch of my friends, and slowly, one at a time, they all kind of left. And I was one of the last ones there. We worked there all throughout high school, became great friends. One of my friends, he began working at a resort in Myrtle Beach called Compass Cove. And in my head, I was thinking it was this small little motel. And one night I was with him, and he had to swing by his resort to pick something up. And I went with him. I saw this massive resort, and I thought, this place is amazing. I said, you have to give me a job here. A few weeks later, the assistant general manager of the property said, hey, we've got a bellman position opening up. Do you know anyone? He's like, I actually do. So I went in, interviewed, took the job, and from that point forward, I've been with the hotel industry.
Wow, Chris, that's amazing. So, I also started, in the service back in hotels as a housekeeper. So, at least I love to hear the stories because it's like, oh, we have that in common, right? Like, and people, we just didn't just graduate from college and boom, we are in a beautiful resort, which there's nothing wrong with that. But I think this brings you in a certain way that you appreciate everybody's position in the hotel as a group, right? As a team. Thank you for the intro, but I want to know more, right, about you. Like, you went to college. Now, you are from Myrtle Beach, or you're from North Carolina?
So yeah, I was born in Greensboro, North Carolina, which is only 3 or 4 hours from Myrtle Beach. When I was around 8 years old, the entire family moved to Myrtle Beach. And I've been here really since then. I moved away for a little while, working at different hotel companies. I actually took a year off from the hospitality industry and became a truck driver in my mid-20s, just driving all over the country, seeing every state that I could, and then found my way back into the hotel industry and actually started back with the Brittins when I reintroduced myself back into the industry. Yeah, grew up here. My original plan out of high school was I wanted to be a lawyer, and I realized that I was a lot more school than I was willing to do. And I just kind of stuck with the hospitality industry. I did end up going back a few years later, and I completed my bachelor's of business management. And I'm just recently, I think 2022, I finished my master's degree in business as well.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow, kudos. Thank you for
Thank you.
coming back to the industry, because that's how, we got to meet each other in person on my previous role. But I wanted to also get this insight from you, right? Because you went from bellman, probably you worked the front desk, and now
Oh yeah.
you are the VP of revenue. So I really want to know, how do you manage your revenue team and the sales teams at the same time?
So, and I think a little bit going back to my experience, right? So I did start off as a bellman, and I worked really every position in every department at the property, right? I did make it all the way up to general manager, switched to the revenue management side, and then into the corporate revenue management side. And then I realized that, hey, being on the corporate level, I'm not getting calls at 2 a.m. in the morning about a burst pipe. I think I'm going to stay on this side, right? But going back to my operations background, that really helps me in, I think, relating with particularly the properties, the general managers, and everyone on property, because I've got that background, right? It's not just someone at the corporate level, like you mentioned earlier, that just graduated college and went immediately to the corporate office. I've got that background. So that helps me managing the relationship with the property. And then managing the team, I think it's different per team member, right? It's we talk about leadership style. Yeah, I think it's a lot like personalities. Everyone you know brings out a different side of your personality, right? Your spouse, your friends, your coworkers, they all see a different side of your personality. It's not to say that it's a different personality, but it's a different side of your personality. And I think employees are the same way, right? I think each employee would say, I've got a different management style that may be similar to the others, but it's a varying management style based on that specific employee, right? Each employee brings out a different side of your management style. Unfortunately, I think like personalities, there are some people that bring a bad side of your personality out. I think that's probably the same for some employees, right? There are some employees that I think can bring out a bad side of your leadership style, but I really think I guess varying, right? That's my leadership style. I try and treat each person based on their specific needs. Yeah, I can be patient, I can be demanding, right? If that's what that person needs. So varying, I guess, is my leadership style.
Okay, okay. So you flex according to, the situation and the team member, right?
I think you have to, right? Especially in this industry, particularly, it's you got to be flexible.
For sure. I actually like the point you say, I can be demanding, when needs to be, because, that's one, in the end of the day, when you are in hotel, in revenue, and you're a corporate office and in sales, or whatever position, you have to answer to somebody, right? So people want to see the ROI in every single activity that you do. But that's where, I'm curious. I want to touch more a little bit on the point of revenue management, because I have a background as a salesperson. I worked in different properties, independent, branded hotel, you name it. But I think there is a fine line, right, between these two teams, revenue managers and sales directors and the GM. So, I think sometimes when you are on property and you have so many challenges, in your day to day, it's very different, right? Like when you're sitting just, looking at reports and reporting the numbers, right, on a daily basis or
Sure.
forecast and so forth. So, like, how do you see now, the AI helping, the revenue managers do their job in a mostly seamless way? And how do you communicate that with the sales team on property?
Yeah. So for me, I think one of my biggest things is context, right? I like context, and I think most revenue managers do, right? It's context is just a fancy way of saying data. We like the data. And I think AI and revenue management, it's necessary, right? It's only going to become better and better as we learn more about it. But yeah, I mean, AI and revenue management are hand in hand. We've been trying to do that for years. We've just been calling it something else, right? It's all of these spreadsheets we put together, all this data we collect. We're collecting that so we can put it together to give us an answer, right? It's AI is, I think, taking it a step further of one, collecting it or putting it together for us, and then giving us that answer and not relying on us to come up with an answer. So AI and revenue management, that's always been there. It's just getting more and more advanced. And I think that helps with, I always say a good revenue manager has to be two things, right? They have to be very highly analytical and highly social. And those aren't two skills you find in the same person very often. You don't ever hear someone saying he's a or she's a highly analytical social butterfly, right? That doesn't happen. So what I think what AI does is it provides a lot of that data for the people who may not be as strong on the data side that do have the social skills that can help them to sell the data a little bit better. Yeah, but it's the more data, the more information you can provide. I think the more trust you're going to gain from that sales team, from that general manager. The hope is that we just throw enough data at them and enough analysis at them that they're going to say, I trust what you're doing, just make the decision and let's go.
Yeah, I remember back in my, I had this amazing revenue manager when I was on property, and he was always like, Wilka, don't tell me the entire story, why you want this group to be at whatever rate they want. You have to show them that we got the same numbers last year, $30 higher, right? Not the same numbers, but like they can't negotiate lower with you. And they're gonna try to bully you, the clients,
Of
right?
course.
trying to say that they have the competition is offering, three other amenities that you're not able to compromise. So I always learned from him, that in the end of the day, lowering the rates is not going to create demand for you, right? So that is stick to my head very much, because it was all about, imagine, like a hotel limited service in New York, and segmentation was so important, right, for us. So do you see here now, bringing to Myrtle Beach, the segmentation, people are coming from, uh, of course, domestic is the number one, right, like a demand that
Sure.
comes to the city, because it's very drivable, right? Like, and I have my American friends, they always say, oh, I spent, my holidays going to Myrtle Beach with my family. So that's like, literally, it's a story, it's part of people's, youth and family time, I suppose. But my question to you is, what do you see now, for 2025? What are you expecting for demand to be like?
Uh, Challenging, right? And I say challenging only because we've seen a decline in, I think the industry has seen a decline in travel for the last few years. So challenging in the sense that there's concerns that that could continue. What we are seeing is first quarter is a little soft compared to last year, but we fully anticipate by spring break that things are going to continue to, and we're seeing that now, right? We are pacing well for we'll call it season forward, right? Which for us really starts around that spring break time frame. We anticipate that it's going to be better than last year, right? And it's not going to be gangbusters, right? It's not going to be what the growth that we experienced in 21 and 22. But there's no indication today that 2025 will not be better than 2023 and 2024, right? And that's what we're budgeting for. That's what we're forecasting for. So that's what we're going after.
Yeah, it's definitely challenging, and I think also, I'm in DC. But I was just in a part of the Destination DC, and huge shout out to them. They are always amazing talking about international travel. People are always eager, right? Like to come to the States, one, if they're coming from other countries. But I think, there is, people are trying to discover different things, right? Like all of this glamping and right, it's like, or what do you say, bleisure, it's all
Yeah,
these
yeah.
trendy words, and for me, as a, I have a different eyes in terms of traveling, because when, I'm from Brazil, when I travel, and usually I was traveling solo for the past couple of years, and now I'm like, oh, maybe I want to go in a beach destination that I really didn't, I don't have a background, right? Like, so
Yeah.
I didn't really experience that on my youth, because, I'm not from this area. But what do you see, like, people, do you see a little bit of, international also, creating a little bit of a nudge for your market, or that's totally out of the order?
So unfortunately not, and this has really just started happening in the last few weeks. We don't Myrtle Beach is not a major international destination. We get a little bit from Europe, but our biggest international travelers are from Canada. And what we've seen over the last few weeks is we're starting to lose some business that we already had reserved or booked. We did a lot of golf business from Canada, but over the last few weeks we've seen that dropping off, and one of the main reasons they're citing is tariffs, right? It's the so that's hurting us a little bit, right? So the little bit of international travel that we do receive has started to dwindle some. I'll say the one positive there, if you can put a silver lining on it, is Canadians typically travel this time of the year, right? It's when it's colder much colder up there, and not as bad here. We see a lot more travel from them. We don't see a large number of Canadians or international travelers during our true peak season, right? When it's a 90, 100 degrees out, we don't get a lot of Canadians. It's this time of the year, which is a challenge because that is an important piece of our business. That is an important segment for us, right? It's this time of the year, it's slow, so we rely on those Canadian travelers, and we have seen those start to dwindle a little bit over the last few weeks.
Maybe you should send a selfie with the snow, right? Like, hey,
Yeah, we need your business. We want your business.
it's not terrible, 100
Yeah.
degrees, come now. But I also loved that you have this, background. And last week, I believe, or to when we were messaging, scheduling the podcast. You said, Wilka, I can't do it today. Is node, it's all hands on deck.
Yeah, we've got
So
stuff to do.
when you said that to me, it is like, sure, no problem. And it reminded me again, back on property, I had this GM. Man, when it was a snowstorm, he would get us the room because then he didn't want us driving anywhere. And he was there at 6 o'clock shoveling, in front of the lobby in the hotel parking lot. So people were, able to come in and out without any issues and accidents, right? So I can relate more, with you on that. But now I'm, enough talking about my experience. I wanted to hear from you if you have a mentor that you want to, to shout out, and or if you are a mentor to somebody.
So my first general manager, him and I are still very, very close. His name's David Medlin. He's since retired, but I learned so much, and not just from work, right? Not just from professional, but just personal as well. He's been a huge mentor in my life. Really helped me just become the adult that I am today. And he always laughs at how where I started, just this immature little 19-year-old kid, and he tells me all the time how proud he is that, hey, you didn't have to go to college, you didn't have to go back and finish college, you could have stayed at Bellman the rest of your life, or just worked at which. And he's told me multiple times how proud he is, and just hearing that, right, from someone who's been in the industry for so long, it's always the thing makes you feel warm inside, right? As far as who am I mentoring, unfortunately, I don't have anyone. No one wants to hear what I have to say, it seems. No, we do a good job trying to capture. So the university here, our founder, Clay Brittain, there's a building over there named after him, for the Hospitality Tourism Center. So we try and capture as much talent coming out of that school as we possibly can. So either for an entry level position or an internship, and it's every cycle you have an opportunity to give someone some kind of mentorship, right? And just I always think about how I was in my late teens and early 20s, and just try and give that same advice and that same guidance that I was given for the person that I would consider as my mentor.
Yeah, it is so important. And even, with this piece of like the opportunity, right? Like you have the kids coming out of college, then you give them, okay, you're gonna be a front desk person. And I think it builds you like that constant customer service, right? Because then you can use for anything if you decided to change careers, or why not. And we've saw a lot of that happening during COVID, right? People leaving the
Sure.
industry and then coming back because they love it, right? Or because they were just like, oh, I need to take a break, I don't know what's going on. Hotels and travel is so slow. But in terms of giving an opportunity, I was a J1 student, when I came from Brazil. I know you guys there in Myrtle Beach also have a lot of J1s.
Of
How
course, yeah.
is that, right now in terms of acquiring more students, or international students, or you guys are leaning more on the local domestic students from your local community college?
So really all, right? And it depends on the position. We are currently in the process of with one on my team, particularly, she's in Aruba. She's an Aruban citizen. She came here, same thing, as a student. After she got the year extension on her student visa, and that's how she came to us. And we are actively in the process of bringing her back permanently. But again, we take anyone, right? Right, and I mean that, and we're not just hiring anybody off the street, but local talent, and worldwide, right? It's we're happy to take anyone that's willing to do the job that we're asking them to do.
Yeah, and I love when I was in that position too. All of the I worked in a beach markets as well in California though, and there was all of the festivals at the beach that the city would provide. Like, oh, here's the schedule of the activities and all of these amazing events. So that's like, it's lovely for students and any colleague that work, because one, it's free usually at the beach,
Sure.
right? Two, it's more, it creates, that demand, right, for our hotels and in campgrounds and so forth. So any shout outs for, a nice festival coming to Myrtle Beach this summer?
Sure. So every year we have Carolina Country Music Fest. Big concert, a lot of country music stars. It's a great festival. It's at the beginning of June, which is it's our season, but it's not peak season, right? Little peak season is when school lets out till school goes back in. But that's a great festival. It's 4 nights of it's Thursday through Sunday. It's 4 nights. Got some great headliners. It's a fun festival. I believe they still do have a few tickets left. So if people are interested in going, now's the time. So it's a book, but that's a great concert to attend. It's just a fun event if you like country, and even if you don't like country music. Yeah, they've filmed some of the headliners this year. They've got Jelly Roll, they've got Kid Rock, so it's going to be a good one this year.
Okay, I'm gonna make sure my sister take a look at that because she likes country music.
Excellent.
But also, I just wanted to, get like your takeaways, yeah, for folks that are interested in the industry. So if like would give like a 3 to 5 takeaways, you choose for people that are starting, what would you suggest?
Work at the property first. Get a job in either at the front desk or housekeeping, because you will quickly learn that a front desk and a housekeeping will make or break the company. If you don't have a good front desk team, if you don't have a good housekeeping team, you don't have a good anything team, right? That's not to take anything away from reservations or maintenance or even the management staff, but the front desk and housekeeping will make or break the hotel. That's the biggest piece of advice. And I think working the front desk, working in housekeeping, that prepares you for anything in the industry. I can promise you nothing will be as hard as working the front desk or working in housekeeping in this industry. Those are the two most challenging positions to work, but they can also be rewarding, right? If you can do it well in either of those departments, you're going to do well in the industry and you're going to get plenty of opportunities for growth.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. I just a remark here. It's like it's so important, the front desk and I know we have like the housekeeping week, right? At the
Sure.
hospitality and all of these fun activities. But also the front desk, right? They have to communicate this too, right?
Have to.
I've made plenty of mistakes. So checking somebody in, the room was not spotless. And then we have to come with the service recovery, so it's like one thing depends on the other. That's why it's really, also, stressing here the communication between the two teams. It's so, 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 so important because
The most
it's
important.
different, right? Like if you say, oh, my lamp by my bed is not working, maintenance, it's not a big deal because lamps, they go down, they go off, right? It's like
Yeah,
routine
sometimes
change.
light bulbs burn out, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But I also feel that if you don't have the communication and that leader right on the hotel to show your staff how to do things the way it's supposed to be, or even like honestly, like I made a mistake with a service dog. I had no idea that you can't ask why that dog is a service dog. I had no
Right. Yeah,
clue,
yeah.
when I just
Didn't
got
know you're doing something
mistake.
wrong.
And I was right up and all. It was a big deal. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know. I was just trying to make conversation with the guest.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I will never ask anything anymore.
That is a challenge, right? Because you're taught in the hospitality industry to be engaging, to have conversation. And you see a dog, and I think most of us want to ask about the dog, right? You're not trying to pry, you're not trying to get any more information than just, again, having a conversation with someone. Hey, I see a dog, I want to pet it, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
hard not to.
Yeah, but also, I think with this communication goes right, like from the entry level, the departments, and then of course management, and then leadership. On the management side, what would you say now from your career, looking overall in the big picture? What was the most challenging um, time or experience that you encountered?
I mean, I feel like the low hanging fruit is COVID, right? It's I don't think anyone in the industry today had ever experienced anything like that. Right, the last major pandemic was in the like 1919s, right? I think that's the low hanging fruit is COVID, right? It's hotels were shutting down, all of your friends and colleagues, you see them losing their jobs, and it was just a scary time for the industry. Um, but I mean, yeah, that's the easy answer. But I think probably you could say 08, 09, right when we went through the recession. The hotel that I was working in at that time, the hotel I was managing at that time, closed, and no one was hiring. So I guess kind of a similar result, but for a different reason. And that's the time that I took a year off to go become a truck driver. So it worked out. But I think COVID's the right answer, right? It's we've never experienced anything like that, and we hope it's going to be a long time before we experience anything like that again.
Yes, definitely. And I was, also in 2007 when I came from Brazil, I was here and I experienced that as well. But, through COVID, I worked. It was really, 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 really hard. I do not expect to go through that again, hopefully.
Right.
But now, I think also sitting in a corporate office like yourself, what would you say that from the big picture, right? Like removing yourself from the your experience, like what is the most challenge that people nowadays are experiencing within their teams in the hotels? Is it turnover or challenge with the making bottom line, and what would you say?
Yeah, so yeah, AI is becoming more and more important, right? And doing a lot of things for. So I think the biggest challenge is for those jobs that we can't replace with AI. And not that we're trying to replace jobs with AI, we're trying to enhance jobs with AI. But there are certain jobs that AI can't do anything for. Housekeeping, right? It's I think that's the most important one. That's always for us, that's always been a challenge to staff and keep staff because we are so seasonal, right? It's we've got plenty of hours for everybody June, July, and August. They come December and January when the hotel's running low occupancy, it's a challenge. So you've got such seasonal labor there. That's the challenge, right? Filling those positions that you cannot get an assistance from AI. And it's those manual positions. Front desk, maybe not as much, right? I think a lot of people can do or enjoying the contactless or check-in, right? You can check on your phone, you can check in a kiosk. There's no kiosk that can clean a room, right? And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have outside of the corporate office is filling those positions that we cannot automate.
And I love that you touch back on AI too, because, back when I was in a hotel, we were trying to use like the text, right? Like as soon as
Mhm.
the person arrives, the text message is there. If they have questions about, local attractions, what to do or how to get there, or why not, then they would have access to it. But I think for us, like implementing this system wasn't just like a logging system for tasks for the staff, but it was a
Sure.
challenge because one, people didn't know how to use, and like the guests, right, they didn't
Yeah,
know
yeah.
they could do that and message us. But for instance, like I went on a trip last year to the Middle East, and as soon as I arrived, I had that one person, dedicated to me, and she was even beyond just like answering my messages. She connected with me on WhatsApp, and then walked me to the room. She gave me a tour of the hotel. And I was like, oh, okay, this is different.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. But, I think that challenge of having people at the teams also implementing, that AI tool, but you have to check. There's, requests that the tool is not, because it's not advanced yet, right? They're still learning what the guests for that particular property is asking about. So it wasn't very smooth, the transition, but I think they were able to implement at least cut some calls right to the desk
Sure.
at times. But even for me, I was in a hotel actually in Charlotte, and then I asked, oh, there is a pharmacy nearby, or I wasn't feeling so well, and then I was like, is there pantry that I can buy, some medicine. And then 2 hours later, the person answered. I was like, oh, I guess this is not
Well,
fully,
well, that wasn't
automated
helpful.
or exact. But, I think that's one challenge that we see, for sure.
Of
But
course.
anyway, I wanted to thank you, for your time today.
Yes, thank
Um,
you.
I wanted to make sure people get a little bit of your experience, right? Your thoughts on the revenue side of, the hospitality industry. But any final thoughts?
Come visit Myrtle Beach.
Yay! I think the
No,
CVB in Myrtle Beach is gonna like that.
no, I would say, and what I think our industry is, right? Embrace AI as much as you can, but keep in mind that this is the hospitality industry, right? And the whole idea behind hospitality is servicing your guests, and it's so you need a person to do that, right? And that's not to say that we just be completely turned off by AI, but keep in mind that again, we are the hospitality industry for a reason, right? We are here to service our guests, and if all we're doing is relying on AI to do that, then I think we're going to lose.
Yes, absolutely. And how can the listeners get in touch with you, Chris?
You can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. My email address is pretty simple, chris.ellison@BrittonResorts.com. If people can remember that, it's Brittain with 2 T's. But yeah, LinkedIn, email. Hey, I'm available. You can stop by my office. We're right here in Myrtle Beach, but that would require you visiting. I could get you a good rate on a hotel room. Just let me know.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, Chris. Thank
Thank
you,
you, Rebecca.
everybody, for listening. Have a great one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.